In 2012, a man climbed into a custom-built, uh, really cramped metal sphere, and he dropped 7 miles down into the darkest, most punishingly dangerous part of the ocean.
Right. Right down to the Mariana Trench.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he wasn't a marine biologist. He wasn't, a military test pilot. He was the guy who directed the Terminator.
Which is just wild to think about.
It really is. Today, we're looking at a man who operates in two completely contradictory universes. I mean, on one hand, he's a master of the beating, messy, unpredictable human heart. But on the other, he's this uncompromising engineer who trusts absolute math to keep him alive at the bottom of the sea.
Yeah, the duality is fascinating.
So welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive, created specifically for you. We're immersing ourselves in a comprehensive, up-to-date biographical source that details the life, the filmography, and the really intense ocean explorations of James Cameron.
And honestly, his career statistics, they almost require a new system of measurement at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, as of today, early 2026, he remains the only director in the entire history of cinema to have 4 consecutive feature films gross over $1 billion each.
4. It's hard to even wrap your head around.
Right, and he's the first director to have 3 movies cross the $2 billion mark. We are talking about literal cultural monoliths here: Titanic, the Avatar franchise, including 2025's Fire and Ash.
They're huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
these films operate on a scale that just completely defies standard Hollywood metrics. But, our mission today is not to just sit here and read off box office receipts.
No, not at all. Our mission is to extract the actual mechanisms of his success.
Yeah.
We want to understand how a college dropout who was driving a truck willed himself into becoming this billionaire world builder.
Exactly.
We're going to pull apart his relentless and sometimes kind of brutal pursuit of perfection. And we want to figure out what his methods can teach you about leadership, innovation, and, mastering your own craft.
And to fully grasp how he commands these massive billion-dollar digital empires today, it really helps to look at the sheer friction of his starting point.
Right, because he didn't start with much.
He had nothing. He moved from Canada to California at age 17. He enrolled in a community college where he tellingly switched his focus from physics to English.
Oh, wow. So that engineer-storyteller duality was present right from the beginning.
It was baked in from the start. But
Mhm.
he ultimately drops out and takes all these blue-collar jobs. I mean, he works as a high school janitor. He drives a truck.
And he's also doing what, like, a lot of young people in the 1970s did, right?
Yeah.
Drinking beer, using cannabis, LSD.
Yeah, exactly.
But he wasn't just drifting. He was this obsessive autodidact. He essentially taught himself Hollywood special effects by walking into the University of Southern California library.
A school he did not attend, by the way.
Right. A school he didn't even go to.
Yeah.
And he's just devouring graduate student papers on these highly technical cinematic processes.
Yeah, he was studying things like optical printing and front screen projection. And to understand why that matters, you really have to realize that in the 1970s, visual effects weren't just software programs you could download.
No, there was no CGI button.
Exactly. They were physical, chemical engineering problems. Optical printing is essentially taking 2 completely different strips of film, loading them into this massive, synchronized mechanical projector camera hybrid, and re-photographing them together frame by frame.
Which sounds painstakingly slow.
Oh, it is an incredibly unforgiving process. Like, a fraction of a millimeter of misalignment ruins the entire shot.
Wow. So he's absorbing the raw mechanics of illusion.
Yeah.
And then the catalyst hits him in 1977.
The Star Wars moment.
Yep. He goes to a theater, sees George Lucas's Star Wars, and just has this visceral reaction. Seeing that it's physically possible to put those massive world-building visions on a screen, it literally prompts him to quit his truck driving job immediately.
He just walked away from it.
Completely. He borrows money from a consortium of local dentists, of all people, to make his first short film, Xenogenesis, in 1978.
And he later compared the experience of directing that short film to a doctor performing a surgical procedure for the very first time.
Oh, that's an intense analogy.
You're right. Like, you have read all the books, you know the theory, but suddenly there is a live patient on the table, the stakes feel absolute, and you just have to make the cut.
You just have to do it.
Yeah. And that intense, almost biological connection to his ideas peaks in the early 1980s. While suffering from a severe fever, he has a nightmare about an invincible robot hitman sent from the future, crawling out of an explosion holding kitchen knives.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because this nightmare basically becomes the script for the Terminator. And it marks the exact moment his entire trajectory shifts.
It changes everything for him.
Right. So he writes this script, and studios actually love it. They want to buy it, but they flat out refuse to let him direct it because, well, he's a nobody.
A complete unknown.
So Cameron makes a deal with Gail Ann Hurd, who had just founded Pacific Western Productions. He sells her the rights to the script for $1 single.
$1.
$1, but strictly on the condition that he, and only he, is the director. I mean, selling a guaranteed hit script for $1 when you're practically broke is astonishing. It's like holding the winning lottery ticket but refusing to cash it unless they let you run the lottery commission. Why take a risk that massive when the entire industry is offering you a safe, lucrative payout just to walk away?
What's fascinating here is his absolute refusal to separate the blueprint from the building.
That makes sense.
For Cameron, the vision on the page held zero value without the execution. He inherently understood that giving up control of the direction meant compromising the idea itself.
Right.
The idea and the execution were not two separate phases of a project for him. They were the exact same organism. If you sell the script, you kill the organism.
Man, and that obsession with execution shows up immediately in how he builds the mechanics of his characters, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, he casts Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. Initially, Schwarzenegger wasn't even considered for the robot, right? He's brought in for the human hero role.
Yeah, the Kyle Reese character.
Right. But Cameron looks at his sheer bodybuilder mass and decides to cast him as the villain, explicitly calling the character a panzer tank.
It's an incredible piece of mechanical storytelling. A panzer tank just crushes you with unstoppable forward momentum. And then years later, when he makes Terminator 2, he completely inverts the physics of the threat. He casts Robert Patrick as the new villain, the T-1000, specifically because Patrick is lean, agile, and moves effortlessly. Cameron actually described the T-1000 as a Porsche.
A Porsche versus a panzer tank. It's the difference between being chased by a boulder versus being chased by a swarm of bees.
Yes.
A boulder crushes you with sheer mass. You can see it coming, but you can't stop it. A swarm of bees, on the other hand, flows around every defense you put up. It finds the cracks. It's not just casting. It's his calculated control over the physics of fear in his universe.
Yeah. But, you know, controlling a script or a single casting decision is one thing. Translating that relentless need for complete, uncompromising control onto a massive movie set introduces a whole new variable.
Human endurance.
Exactly, human endurance.
And this is where the visionary reputation really collides with the villain reputation. Transitioning from a solitary writer to a commander of hundreds of exhausted technicians forged his legacy as an autocrat.
Yeah, the stories are legendary.
The anecdotes in the source material paint a pretty grueling picture. I mean, Kate Winslet, who delivered an iconic performance in Titanic, openly stated there were times she was genuinely frightened of his temper on set.
And then you have Ed Harris during the filming of The Abyss.
Oh, that shoot sounded like a nightmare.
It really was. They were shooting inside massive reclaimed water tanks from an unfinished nuclear power plant. And underwater filming is physically punishing.
You're just fighting water the whole time.
You're breathing compressed air, fighting sensory deprivation, dealing with freezing temperatures, and hauling heavy gear for hours on end. Harris actually described Cameron's behavior as dictatorial during a shoot that pushed the cast to their absolute psychological limits.
Even the composer, James Horner, found writing the score for Aliens under Cameron's impossible deadlines so stressful that he refused to speak to him for a decade.
10 whole years?
10 years. And Sam Worthington, the star of Avatar, recounted that if a crew member's mobile phone rang on set during a take, Cameron would literally take a nail gun and fasten the ringing phone to the wall.
With a nail gun?
But wait, I have to push back here. Is this just the classic toxic genius excuse we see so often in Hollywood? Are we saying you have to be a tyrant to make a $2 billion movie? Does terrorizing people actually yield a better movie, or did these crews just manage to survive him?
Well, this raises an important question about the mechanisms of extreme leadership. If we look at the defenses offered by his closest collaborators, a much more complex dynamic emerges.
Okay, so people did defend him.
Oh, vigorously. Sigourney Weaver and Jamie Lee Curtis, for example, heavily defended his methods. They pointed out that his perfectionism was an arbitrary cruelty.
Right.
He expects perfection because he understands the underlying physics of every single job on the set, from the refractive index of the camera lenses to the material tension of the props, better than the technicians actually doing them.
So his impatience comes from a lack of friction in his own understanding. He sees the solution instantly and just cannot fathom why the crew is lagging behind.
Precisely. Furthermore, Weather noted that while he asks his actors to take extreme physical risks for a shot, he never asks them to do something he isn't willing to do himself.
He's right there in the trenches.
He is literally in the freezing water with them. But the most compelling data point regarding his leadership comes from Cameron himself.
Really?
Yeah. In a 2021 masterclass, he admitted to having deep regrets about his past behavior. He actually called his younger self a tin pot dictator.
Wow. He mentioned visiting a set run by Ron Howard, right? And being stunned by how much time Howard spent complimenting his crew and fostering a calm, positive environment.
Yeah, he publicly stated he wants to channel his inner Ron Howard.
Inner Ron Howard.
I love that. And that kind of self-awareness is exceptionally rare for a person occupying the absolute pinnacle of Hollywood power.
Yeah.
He already has the money and the records. He didn't need to apologize.
But his analytical mind recognized the flaw in his own leadership system, that fear is an incredibly inefficient long-term motivator.
Exactly.
That realization is fascinating. But you have to wonder if that intense life-or-death operating mode wasn't simply a filmmaking quirk. It really feels like a fundamental survival mechanism. Because the places James Cameron goes when he is not making movies are environments where a single miscalculation results in immediate death.
Yeah, his transition into deep-sea exploration is where the engineer side of his brain completely takes over.
And he goes way beyond a hobby.
Oh, far beyond. He conducted multiple, highly dangerous submersible dives to the actual wreck of the Titanic in the 1990s. Then, in 2012, he achieved something truly monumental. He became the first person in history to complete a solo descent to the Challenger deep in the Mariana Trench, the deepest known point of the Earth's seabed.
And he didn't just buy a ticket for that dive. As a National Geographic explorer in residence, he spent years actively engineering the submersible he rode in, the Deep-Sea Challenger.
Because he understands deep-sea pressure on a molecular level.
It's terrifying to even think about.
At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the water pressure is roughly 8 tons per square inch. That is the equivalent of having 50 jumbo jets piled on top of you.
50 jumbo jets.
Yeah. In that environment, hope is irrelevant. Only math matters.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We see this intense, rigid engineering mindset emerge during a modern tragedy.
The Titans.
Exactly. When the Titan submersible imploded on its way to the Titanic wreck, Cameron provided a devastatingly precise, highly technical critique of the failure. He pointed out that he had completely foreseen the vulnerability of the Titan's design.
Which a lot of experts had.
Right. He explained that pressure hulls subjected to the immense weight of the deep ocean must be made of contiguous materials, things like steel, titanium, ceramic, or acrylic.
Yeah, he specifically criticized the Titan's use of a wound carbon fiber composite cylinder.
This is how it's built.
Exactly. To understand his critique, you have to look at how carbon fiber is actually constructed. It's essentially high-tech plywood layers of fiber glued together with resin. While it is incredibly strong when you stretch it, it has terrible strength and compression.
Right, so under the weight of the entire ocean, if even a microscopic drop of water breaches the outer layer, it acts like a wedge. It forces those glued layers apart in a process called delamination.
Delamination, yeah.
And once one layer fails, the entire structure shatters instantly. Titanium, on the other hand, is a contiguous, solid metal. It compresses evenly.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we see Cameron's core philosophy: technology must serve reality. It cannot defy physics.
It's such a stark warning.
He compared the Titan tragedy directly to the Titanic disaster itself. In his view, both were entirely preventable, and both were caused by individuals deliberately ignoring direct mathematical safety warnings from experts.
That's a chilling parallel.
It really is. Cameron isn't just a storyteller playing with cameras. He is a highly capable engineer who worked with NASA to build 3D cameras for the Curiosity rover sent to Mars. He deeply understands that nature always wins.
It's as if his brain operates in two completely different physics engines. I mean, in Hollywood, he pushes the absolute boundaries of digital CGI to bend reality to his will.
Yeah.
He creates entirely new visual species and floating mountains.
But in the ocean, he's a rigid traditionalist.
Exactly. He demands cold, hard titanium. He doesn't trust hope in the Mariana Trench. Which brings us to a really profound contradiction.
What's that?
Well, if he is this cold, calculating, engineering-minded perfectionist who spends his time obsessing over compression strength, delamination, and frame rates, Why do his movies resonate so deeply on a purely emotional level with billions of people across the globe?
Because he uses the machines strictly to house the human heart.
Oh, I like that.
Cameron himself has explicitly stated, all my movies are love stories, and when you strip away the liquid metal robots and the blue aliens, it really holds true.
Titanic is obvious, of course.
Right, but Avatar is fundamentally a love story. Even the Terminator revolves around a desperate romance across time that literally sparks the salvation of humanity.
His themes are incredibly consistent, aren't they? He constantly explores the dangers of corporate greed. He frames the conflict between intelligent machines and the natural world. He consistently champions capable, strong female characters,
And he has a deep-seated fear of nuclear annihilation.
which goes way back.
The source material traces this fear back to his childhood memories of watching the Cuban Missile Crisis unfold when he was just 8 years old.
That childhood terror isn't just trivia. It actively drives his creative pipeline. I mean, it connects directly to his upcoming film project, Last Train from Hiroshima, which focuses on a man who survived the atomic bombings of both Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah, he views technology as a double-edged sword that constantly threatens humanity, even as he utilizes the most advanced technology on Earth to warn us about it.
And we see that exact tension in his recent advice to modern filmmakers regarding artificial intelligence. Here is arguably the most technologically advanced director alive, yet he is adamantly warning directors not to replace actors with AI.
Because of the idiosyncrasies.
Right. He argues that human actors bring essential idiosyncrasies, microexpressions, unpredictable flaws, genuine grief that an artificial intelligence simply cannot replicate. He tells filmmakers they should spend a year deeply studying human acting rather than just playing with AI prompts.
And his personal life anchors this philosophy. After immersing himself in the highly digital nature of the Avatar movies, he bought a massive farm and moved to New Zealand, formally becoming a citizen in August of 2025.
Wow, really walking the walk.
Yeah, he's been a committed vegan since 2011 and runs sustainability businesses. He demonstrates a profound, practical commitment to the actual natural world that he spends hundreds of millions of dollars depicting digitally.
So what does this all mean? How does the listener apply this duality to their own life and work?
That's the big question.
We're looking at a guy who creates the most advanced tech in Hollywood history, yet he's telling young filmmakers to spend a year studying human acting. What is the actual actionable takeaway for someone trying to navigate our hyper-technical world today?
I think the ultimate takeaway is to rethink your relationship with the tools of your trade. Cameron treats creativity as an engineering problem, and he treats engineering as a profoundly creative pursuit.
They aren't separate things for him.
Exactly. His superpower isn't technology. His superpower is mastering the technical limits of his field so thoroughly that the technology itself becomes invisible, leaving only the raw, fundamental human emotion.
That's so powerful.
The advice is clear: master the machine, but never let the tool become the master. Whether you're building an underwater submersible, managing a complex corporate team, or designing an AI model, the human element, our idiosyncrasies, our flaws, our empathy is the only thing that injects actual value into the final product.
That is a phenomenal synthesis. Master the technical limits so completely that they disappear. Thank you for walking us through this deep dive into the dual nature of James Cameron.
It was a pleasure.
We've tracked an incredible journey today, from a truck driver having fever dreams about killer robots, to a nail gun-wielding perfectionist, to a solo deep-sea explorer trusting his life to titanium, to a staunch champion of human emotion in the face of digital replication.
It is a remarkable arc. But before we conclude, there is one final, unresolved piece of data from the source material that I really want to leave the listener to ponder.
Oh, lay it on us.
So we just analyzed Cameron's staunch defense of human actors and his explicit warnings against relying on artificial intelligence.
Right.
But here's the data point. In September of 2024, James Cameron quietly joined the board of directors of Stability AI, one of the world's major artificial intelligence companies.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a massive pivot. Why would the ultimate defender of the human element join the board of an AI machine? Is he trying to guide the technology from the inside, installing safety protocols so it doesn't become the very Skynet he warned us about back in 1984?
It makes you wonder.
Or does he see a mechanical application for it that the rest of us just don't see yet? Keep that in mind the next time you watch a James Cameron film. So look down at your hands. The cold, rigid microchip and the beating, messy human heart. They aren't enemies. If you can figure out how to wire them together, you might just build a universe. Keep seeking those aha moments in your own learning journey, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.